Hi, everybody. I'm Gloria Moraga. I'm going to try something a little different on this episode of Political Woman. I'm going to read from George F. Will's column. George Will is a columnist for the Washington Post. He is not my favorite writer. His politics are very to the right, very, very right, conservative. I've read his stuff throughout the years. He's a good writer. He's a great writer, but I've never agreed with anything he said, really. I started reading this column. He posted it. It's from July 14th, 2023. And I try to read his columns, when they come out. So I'm late, obviously, because it was almost a month ago that he wrote this. I don't even know if he feels the same way anymore. But I was reading it and it was so well written and so right on that I thought I would go ahead and just read it aloud to you, but also stop quoting and throw in my 2 cents worth about the election, the upcoming election next year, and how I feel about some of these same things. I'm Gloria Moraga, Political Woman. Please subscribe, please follow me, please share. All right, here is the George Will column posted July 14th, 2023. It's an opinion piece because he's a columnist. Neither Trump nor DeSantis will get the GOP nomination. And then there's a big picture of DeSantis and Trump. Quote, inevitably, there comes a rebellion against inevitability. Voters have been told that Donald Trump is the all but inevitable Republican nominee, and that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, operating atop a mountain of cash, will inevitably be Trump's only significant challenger. Voters, however, become contrary when told that the game's outcome is known at the top of the first inning. Hence what G.K. Chesterton called the game of, quote, cheat the prophet. People listen politely to explanations of what is inevitable, then make something else happen. The 2024 Republican nomination question was supposed to be, could anyone harpoon the great orange whale? Who knew that he would harpoon himself repeatedly, or that DeSantis, playing Captain Arab, would pay Trump the sincerest form of flattery by imitating his persona as an unhappy warrior. The nation is dispirited by the prospect of an all too familiar binary choice between Joe Biden and Trump. Republicans might soon recoil from another between Trump and DeSantis. Both candidates are brittle. So true. When I read that, it just mesmerized me. And Will goes on, quote, Trump, as stale as a month-old crust of sourdough, is running to win the 2020 election. His crybaby crusade might cause even his star-spangled supporters to wonder how to square their proclaimed love of the nation with their hero's insistence that it is so saturated with corruption that his landslide win could be erased without a peep from the courts, including some of his how sharper than a serpent's tooth is it to have a thankless judge, appointees. So what he's saying there is, yeah, Trump appointed these judges, and then they didn't agree with him. Back to the column. Quote, Trump's self-harpooning includes expressing contempt for Iowa's popular governor, Kim Reynolds, because she refuses to endorse him, even though he alone, he says, is responsible for her election. And he is too grand to appear with rival candidates at events, perhaps even the August 23rd debate in Milwaukee. And this is Gloria again. It looks like, yeah, Trump is not going to attend that debate because he's so far ahead. Back to the column. In the 1980 campaign, Ronald Reagan, who was not considered the inevitable GOP nominee, made only 8 Iowa campaign appearances, spending a total of 49 hours in the state. According to Stephen F. Hayward's The Age of Reagan, The Fall of the Old Liberal Order, 1964 to 1980. And Reagan skipped the Des Moines Register's January 5th debate, which 58% of Iowa voters watched. Voters do not dislike inevitabilities more than they dislike politicians who seem to feel entitled to special dispensations. Reagan's post-debate support plummeted from 50% in November to 26% a week before the caucuses, which he lost to George H.W. Bush. DeSantis, after nearly 2 months of intensified exposure to non-Floridians, resembles a political Edsel. And then Will goes on to explain what an Edsel is, which is hilarious. He says, quote, "That was the new car model that debuted to much fanfare in 1957, backed by Ford's marketing might. It expired in 1959, becoming a byword for disastrously misreading consumers. DeSantis is running hard to be president of Iowa, or of that minority of Iowans who will vote in the January caucuses and think Trump is ideologically squishy, e.g. regarding wokeness, and insufficiently abrasive, e.g. regarding gay rights. The Republican nomination contest is accelerating, as is Ukraine's counteroffensive, the latter underscoring the stakes of the former. This is so interesting to me. He talks about Spain's civil war. Quote, "During Spain's civil war, a rebel general boasted that he had 4 marching columns on Madrid and a 5th column in Madrid, meaning supporters of his army's insurgency." Get it? He's got an army in town to squash dissenters. Quote, "Vladimir Putin's 5th column is not in Kiev, but in the Trump-DeSantis faction of the Republican Party." Wow. That is amazing to me that he says that. Yeah, Putin's support is in the Republican Party that supports Trump and DeSantis. That's Putin's 5th column. And I've known this all along, that Trump is playing to Putin, and now DeSantis is playing to Putin. So, in other words, anti-democracy. Back to the column. Quote, "Putin has 2 hopes for a less than completely mortifying rescue from his Ukraine blunder. One is the election of Trump, whose frivolousness about national security complements his weakling's admiration for a bully. Putin's other hope is the election of DeSantis, who said, before retreating when criticized, Russia's attempt to erase a European nation is a territorial dispute, and those pandering to Trumpkins prevents him from denouncing House Republicans who are as eager to abandon Ukraine as they would have been to abandon Czechoslovakia in 1938. It's troubling. Back to the column. Quote, "A New Hampshire student, referring to the January 6th, 2021 riot that followed Trump's incendiary harangue and disrupted the certifying of electoral votes, asked DeSantis last month whether Trump violated the peaceful transfer of power. DeSantis's less than courageous answer: "I wasn't anywhere near Washington that day. I have nothing to do with what happened that day." End of the DeSantis quote. And then Will writes, "Good grief, he wasn't anywhere near Gettysburg in July 1863, and he had nothing to do with the moon landing in July 1969, but does that not preclude him from having thoughts about these events?" Political philosophy is optional folly, but there are not enough Republicans in Iowa or the nation enamored of the snarling contest between Trump and DeSantis, their competition to see who can despise the most American defects, to nominate either of them, which is grim news for President Biden. And then at the end of the column, there's a disclosure. The columnist's wife, Mari Will, is an advisor to Republican presidential candidate Tim Scott. Oh my God. Oh, which kind of like takes the air out of this column, but I guess, which is grim news for President Biden, means that Biden can easily beat Trump. Biden can easily beat DeSantis, but Biden might not be able to beat the person that Will thinks will become the Republican nominee, because he doesn't think either of these men will. I wanted to read that because of the comments about Russia and the comments about these two men and how despicable they are, and how they are both, especially Trump, but DeSantis is doing it as well, just constantly attack America. They constantly belittle our country and talk about how bad our country is and what a mess this country is. Particularly Trump, but DeSantis is right up there with him. And it's disgusting and sickening, and they need to shut up. And I hope that they do shut up when they don't win. It's great to see DeSantis every day lose more points and just be in free fall, because what he's doing in Florida is just, he's acting like a dictator, and the legislature's letting him, and there's no checks and balances there, and it's frightening, because there is no democracy. It's a little dictatorship run by Ron DeSantis, and I don't think he's that smart and really knows anything. And he certainly doesn't have a personality. And Trump's dangerous. We had another man was killed after making continued online threats to not just the president, but other Democrats. And the FBI went to serve a search warrant yesterday, and he was shot and killed. And this is what Trump wants. This is what he's trying to get, and it's frightening and wrong. I'm Gloria Moraga, Political Woman. I've got another podcast that I've written, and I'll be posting that soon. I'm a political woman. Please vote. Please follow me. Please subscribe. I'm on TikTok and YouTube. I need supporters. Be safe.